Welcome to Veranda IAS. In today's current affairs session in the subject Geography and Disaster Management, we will be dealing with the topic Phase 2 of Strategic Petroleum Reserves Program. Moving on, the learning objective of today's LU is to analyze the Strategic Petroleum Reserves, that is SPR, and to examine the SPR which is in news, and we will be also discussing about the background of the strategic oil reserves in India and to explain the different phases of the strategic oil reserves in India. Also, we will be explaining the India and its international commitments with regarding to the oil reserves. So, moving on, let's see about this SPR. So, the term SPR usually refers to Strategic Petroleum Reserves. So, it refers to storage facilities for petroleum in addition to those already in use by oil firms for crude oil and petroleum products. Further, the crude oil storage tanks are built underground in rock caves. So, why these petroleum reserves are building underground? Because we have caves, right? So, in this cave, we will be constructing some tanks and where we can store these petroleum reserves, so that the petroleum it will be safe inside these rocks and further inside these tanks. So, it is the best place to store the hydrocarbons. So, further, the caverns in the rock are enormous man-made chambers, as we discussed before. These are man-made chambers inside naturally built rocks carved into rock, that is considered the safest way to store hydrocarbons. So, because petroleum and other gasolines, these are needed to be stored in a safest way. So, that is why we are saving this in caverns inside rocks. Further, let us see about why this SPR is in news. So, India has decided to replenish its strategic petroleum stocks in view of the current decline in oil prices during COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. So, why is India is planning to store oil reserves as of now? Because India as a whole, what we are experiencing, what we are witnessing today is that the lower income families are getting into higher income. So, the lower middle class families are getting themselves into becoming an higher income family, that is the upper middle class. Which means they can afford buying new vehicles, they can afford buying multiple two-wheelers, or even they can afford buying an four-wheeler. So, the needs of peoples were increasing. So, that is why the needs of petroleum is also increasing. So, that is why with a huge population, which the world with world's second largest population, and India is expecting to overcome China in the recent upcoming years. So, the petroleum reserves are very much important for building our country as a whole. So, that is why the Indian government has decided to replenish its SPR program. Why it is doing now? Because of this COVID-19 pandemic, the oil prices overall the world, it has decreased. So, what India is doing is that it is buying this oil for lowest cost and it is storing it in caverns, as we discussed before. So, in that it will be useful for the Indian economy after this price got normal, after if the COVID pandemic it's hindered. So, again the petroleum prices will get into rise. In such case, it will be very much useful for India. Then this will benefit India on two fronts. It will be able to obtain low cost oil, as we discussed, and it reserves and it will help refiners handle their storage issues. Further, let us see about the background of this strategic oil resource in India. So, when Gulf War devastated West Asia in 1990s, India faced a near bankruptcy. So, what happened in 1990s? there is a war breakout in the Gulf region. So where we are getting the petroleum from? India is importing petrol from this Gulf countries. So because of this Gulf war, India cannot import oils from this West Asia. So because of that, the prices of the Indian petroleum, it became so high, so that Indian economy became near bankruptcy. So the oil prices soared, causing India's import bill to balloon. So India's import bill actually expanded to a large extent. So the Indian economy itself, it got near to the bankruptcy. So at that time, we have not yet privatized the economy. So that is why it was very much worrying factor for India at that time. So this result in currency crisis that would have financed only 3 weeks worth of import. So what it is means that India only had money for buying imports from other countries for up to 3 weeks. So after 3 weeks, there will be no money to give to other countries. So there will be no imports which is coming to India. So the people would have been suffered. So anyhow, that situation has been passed and India had saved itself from that crisis. Further, India avoided the crisis with the implementation of the following economic policies: liberalization, privatization and globalization. So what is this? The LPG reform. So this LPG reform has opened a door for private players in India. So before that, India was like a welfare state. So majority of the fields were actually owned by the government. So private players was not at all involved in many of the fields. So after post-liberalization, post these LPG reforms, private players were opened doors to do business in India. So because of this, large FDI flowed into India, and thus our economy began to expand. So that's what happened post liberalization. However, India continued to impacted by the oil volatility. Even though we have opened door for the private players, even though we made all these reforms, India is still now worrying with the oil prices worldwide, because there will be major issues like in recent days. So there was a clashes in Saudi Arabia. So there was a missile attack by the rebels on the Saudi oil fields. So because of that, Indian oil prices actually expanded. So it's increased. So still volatility is in the oil prices in India. So further, in 1998, Atal Bihari Vajpayee administration introduced the notion of oil reserves in order to provide a long-term solution originating from the oil market. Suppose if India requires an oil, let's say for example 200 million metric ton per day, suppose. So if India is importing these 200 million metric ton from any of the Gulf country at the price of 1 rupee, then it will cost India 200 per day. Fine. So if there is any clashes in the Saudi region or in the West Asian region, then this price will actually expand. So then India wanted to export this 200 million metric ton of oils at the cost of 10 rupees. Then it will cost India 2000. So avoid this kind of volatility. What the Indian government is planning, like it will actually store 400 million metric ton of oils per day. So the oil usage, which is way ahead from what we want now, so it will be like storing oil for the future. So when this type of crisis come, so this oil resource will be utilized, it will be given to the public and it will be utilized, hence the economy will be saved. So that is what the government is actually trying to do with this strategic petroleum reserve process. Further, India received the first shipload of crude oil from the United Arab Emirates UAE in 2018 for the Mangalore Underground Strategic Storage Facility. Indian Strategic Petroleum Reserves Unlimited ISPRL inked a contract with Abu Dhabi's National Oil Company ADNOC, which is an Abu Dhabi based company. in February 2021 to lease a portion of Mangalore storage facility. So PPP was actually involved, private public partnership. So this Abu Dhabi, with this Abu Dhabi company, so it was actually given a part of this Mangalore oil reserve to maintain its own. Further, let's see about the different phases of this strategic oil resource program in India. So under phase 1 of SPR program, the Indian government through its special purpose vehicles ISPRL has developed a petroleum storage facilities with a combined capacity of 5.33 million metric tons at 3 sites as follows. One is Visakhapatnam, and another is Mangalore, and another is Padur. So this is phase 1 which has always been constructed. So the total carrying capacity of these 3 facilities overall is 5.33 metric ton. So further, for phase 2 of SPR program, the government has approved the establishment of 2 further commercial military strategic facilities with a combined storage capacity of 6.5 MMT. So the first phase it has around 5 MMT, and the second phase it will have an storage facility of 6. So overall India will have a storage facility of 11 million metric ton if the second phase is completed. So it is expected, it was completed in July 2021. The process is undergoing from July 2021. So what are the new facilities? It is Chandikol and Padur, and the 2 storage devices are connected using public-private partnership as we discussed before. Let's discuss about these facilities. So here we have Mangalore facility, and here we have this Padur. Here we have this Mangalore and Padur, and the Chandikol which is in Orissa. Also here we have Visakhapatnam, which has already been an strategic oil reserve. So then Indian government is also trying to extend this process to Bikaner in Rajasthan and Rajkot in Gujarat. So why these oil facilities are located in the peninsular region only? Because we are importing oil from the West Asian region through seaways. So that is why it will be very much useful for the Indian government to store oils in the coastal areas. So that is why Mangalore, Padur, Visakhapatnam, Chandikol, everything is an coastal area. So that is why these places has been covered in this SPR. These places has been chosen. So the overall, if it completed, the overall carrying capacity will be 11 million metric ton. Fine, a total of INR 210 crores so was budgeted in the financial year 2020-21 budget for land acquisition under phase 2, and funds have been released to the Indian Strategic Petroleum Reserves Limited ISPRL. So there has been 210 crores INR which has been granted for this process as a whole. Further, let's see about the India's international commitment with regard to the oil storage. So the IEA, International Energy Agency, has urged India, the world largest energy user, so India is the world 3rd largest energy user, to join as a full member, a move that if approved would require New Delhi to increase its strategic oil reserves to 90 days. So the IEA want India to have a storage of oils which can sustain up to 90 days. Additionally, an IEA member must demonstrate a demand restriction program capable of reducing the national oil consumption by 10%. So they want to reduce the oil consumption. So they want to use other technology for the energy conservation, such as the windmills or the electrical usages. In recent years, we have seen booming electrical vehicle being manufactured in India. So That is why a 10% reduction in oil was needed for the IEA. This participation will bolster India's energy security in the future years. So that's all for today's session. To summarize today's session, we have seen about the Strategic Petroleum Reserves (SPR). We have seen SPR and why it is in news, and we have seen the background of strategic oil reserves in India, why this oil is need to be stored in India, and we also seen the different phases of this strategic oil reserves in India, and we have also seen India and its international commitments. So that's all for today's LU. Have a nice day. Thank you.